Hello and welcome to Pock and Rob. This video is one that I've been talking about making for quite a while. Some may say I have been threatening to make it, but I'm finally going to get round to it. I'm making this video mainly for me. It is my ranking of all of the studio albums of Bucks Fizz and The Fizz and OBF. If you don't know, Bucks Fizz were the winners of Eurovision in 1981. They are a British pop band. They dissolved in some acrimony. 3 members came back as OBF, originally of Bucks Fizz. They added a 4th member, at least for a short while, and became The Fizz. The Fizz are still going. Bucks Fizz are still going. However, Bobby G is the only original member left on that particular incarnation, and they are not releasing new material. Before I dive into my ranking of the 10 albums, I would remind you to subscribe if you've not already done so. Click the thumbs up if you like the video, and the bell to receive notifications of future content and when we release further videos. And let's dive in with comfortably my number 10. It is OBF and Fame or Fortune. Comfortably bottom of the pack. This consists of 12 tracks, 6 of which are reimagined old Bucks Fizz hits. Nobody needed to see here Making Your Mind Up done in a swing style. It just doesn't really translate. Their kind of Cuban style version of If You Can't Stand the Heat is the pick of the bunch of that lot. Then there are 6 original tracks that have been mostly written or co-written by Cheryl's husband Steve Stroud, including one that's been co-written with Cheryl herself. The last track is probably the best song on here. It's co-written by Cheryl with her husband. It's called Ain't That a Shame, and it chronicles the rise and demise of the band Bucks Fizz themselves, in taking in things like references to Big Note, their music publishers, how they were kind of financially screwed a bit, and also the famous Darlington coach crash that nearly killed member Mike Nolan. But it's a bad record. Simply put, it's poor. I'm not entirely sure I should put this on again. OBF, poor album, comfortably number 10. So at number 9, from one mess to another, but this is for very different reasons, Writing on the Wall. I've owned this album. This is my original copy from 1986. I never got rid of it. But at the same time, it's never burrowed in. And that's the problem with this record. There's too many tracks on here that you give me the title and I cannot hum it. That is not the same for so much more on the albums to come. There'd been a huge amount of turmoil in the band's existence prior to this. First, we have the infamous coach crash. We have Jay Aston leaving and the recruitment of Shelley Preston. And it was an attempt at a last hurrah, and to some extent was successful. Mamba Sarah, the lead-off track, was a top 10 hit. It restored them to the charts. It restored their best style of single, which is all 4 of them taking shared vocal leads. But the rest of the album follows the same formula and problem that began a couple of albums earlier, was writ large on their 4th record, and is again all over here, which is Bobby G, lead vocalist. No, they're not. That wasn't what made them successful and enjoyable, as we'll see as we go deeper into their discography. It's a mess because there's a track on there that I think may still include Jay, which is You and Your Heart So Blue. The cover of Love the One You're With, pretty decent. It's all right. And Keep Each Other Warm is a lovely song. And there's much to enjoy, but there's so much more that's forgettable. And we didn't need an extended version of I Hear Talk, because we've got I Hear Talk. Writing on the Wall, a mess. The releases are all over the place. There are so many different versions of this, and there were different versions when it came out. It's my number 9. At number 8, and just nudging ahead of it because it's just so cohesive and fun, Christmas with The Fizz. I will talk a little bit more about how The Fizz came to be recording new material when I get to their first The Fizz album. But it's a Christmas album, mostly. It has 2 absolutely lovely originals on here. There is Don't Start Without Me, absolutely cracking song, and So Christmas, written by Kyla Stroud, who is Cheryl's daughter, which is a lovely Christmas song. The rest of it is covers, some of which is Christmas standards, others are Christmas adjacent. So things like Mull of Kintyre, not a Christmas song. Keeping the Dream Alive by Freiheit, also not a Christmas song. And River by Joni Mitchell, which people are trying to claim isn't a Christmas song, but probably just about is, from the Blue album. And Cheryl sings it brilliantly. There's also a retread of Land of Make Believe, Christmas edition, not that bothered, and a reimagining of a track done better on The Fizz's first album, which I'll talk about when I get there. But it does mean it's an enjoyable record, and particularly Don't Start Without Me. Fantastic Christmas song. Go and listen to it. It's really, really good. Christmas with The Fizz, number 8. At number 7 is their fourth album and the start of the rot. The writing was on the wall, although that is not what this album is called. It is I Hear Talk. I Hear Talk itself is an absolutely phenomenal song, sung with lead vocals by both Bobby and Cheryl. I can forgive that. What I can't forgive is the fact that Cheryl, Jay and Mike are given one lead vocal each on this record, and the remaining 6 tracks are all led by Bobby. This is the start of the rot for me, because it becomes all about Bobby and his backing band. Bucks Fizz were not that. They were Mike and Bobby taking the male leads and Cheryl and Jay both taking the female leads. And while I Hear Talk is a phenomenal top draw Bucks Fizz single, in my top 100 songs of all time, it wasn't a massive hit because they couldn't promote it due to the coach crash. Side 1 has got things like Indebted to You and Tears on the Ballroom Floor, a kind of pointless cover of Golden Days, which was a Cliff Richard song, and the Cold War, all right, but it's a sinking stone, this album. It starts phenomenally and everything tails off afterwards. Number 8. And number 6 from 2020, Smoke and Mirrors. This is in my top 15 albums, or top 20, I can't remember what I did when I reimagined, of 2020. It's a good, enjoyable pop album. Again, we have a contribution from Kyla Stroud in Storm, really good song. Jay Aston writes Boomerang, that closes the album, which is great fun. TOTP, really, really enjoyable, fun song about being on top of the pops. Winning Ways, it's a good album. It's not great. I don't have a bad time with anything on here. And it's what I want from a pop album. Smoke and Mirrors at number 6. At number 5 is The Fizz's debut record, F to Z of Pop. The only album that features Bobby McVeigh from The Replacements as the second male vocalist. And he didn't stick around after this album because he lived in Italy and the touring and travelling was too difficult. So it doesn't feel like there was acrimony in that particular split. This is produced by Mike Stock of Stock, Aitken and Waterman, who also writes or co-writes the majority of the tracks on here. You get the feeling that Mike Stock knows Bucks Fizz and that he was a Bucks Fizz fan before he was a famous producer, because this feels like Bucks Fizz from the first 3 albums. Tracks to highlight as real highlights from it are Break the Ice, Amen, which was written by Kyla Stroud, Up for the Fight, and Home for My Heart, co-written by Jay Aston and her husband Dave Colquhoun, which is what they revisited on the Christmas album and did a Christmassy styled version, and it's the better version. I do think the original on here is better, but it feels like a Bucks Fizz album should feel, and I wouldn't want more than that. I could do without the remake of My Camera Never Lies. You've already heard what I think about them doing massive amounts of remakes of their original hits, especially as the vinyl version has a cover version of I Am the Beat, which is not on here. that would have sat better as part of the album. But F to Z of Pop, my number 5. Number 4 is their third album and the first one that I owned on vinyl, as I had the first two on cassette when I was little. Hand Cut from 1983. This is a really good pop album. Again, it's kind of what I want to hear from Bucks Fizz, but there's a niggle in this record, and that is, this is where the whole idea of Bobby as lead vocalist really starts. So whilst on the first two albums everybody got a share of being a lead vocalist, and indeed on this album everybody gets a share of being lead vocalist, on this one 2 tracks as lead vocalist were given to Jay and 2 were given to Bobby. For some reason the management and the record label decided that's the way we're going to go. Bobby's the real voice here, and I think they're wrong. I will touch on why when we get a little bit further on, but there's good tracks on here. The 2 singles, Run For Your Life and Can't Stand the Heat, are both really good singles. The third single, which was released pretty much as they were properly falling apart, is You Love Love, which is Cheryl's lead vocal. Beautiful song. Wasn't a hit, not surprising. Should and maybe it would have been if they'd released it contemporaneous with the album. But 10987654 is great. So is Where the Ending Starts and I Do It All For You. And I Like to Say I Love You. And it's just a fun record. That's what pop needs to be. It's fun. Hand Cut, good record. It's my number 4. Number 3 is the most recent release. It's Everything Under the Sun. This is just a great pop album. I feel like with this one that they've really hit their stride with Mike Stock as the producer. They're enjoying their recordings, they're enjoying their life, they're enjoying touring, and it just comes through. Again, we have a cover version on here, but this is an absolutely fantastic cover version. It's of This One by Paul McCartney. Now, I'm a Macca fan, and I love the song This One. I always have. Go back and watch my Flowers in the Dirt ranking to see what I think of that track. But I have a problem with it, and it's the This Swan pun in the second half of the verse. They don't do that. They don't bother with it. And the song is better for it. The album opens with I Wonder Where You Are Right Now. Really enjoyable. Everything We Do, which is a pay-on to the fans. There's a really good penultimate track, which is so much better than the kind of story of themselves that's on OBF. It's a bit of a retreading of a theme. I'm on my way, better run. It even quotes Run For Your Life. And then right in the middle of side 2 is Pretty Soon, which Cheryl sings, and it's just beautiful ballad. Pretty Soon is just a fantastic song and one of my favourites of the year this came out, 2022. Everything Under the Sun, sitting pretty at number 3. Which leaves their first 2 albums in positions 1 and 2, but in what order? Well, if you've watched any of my videos before and Bucks Fizz have come up in them, it'll be no surprise to you because I often state this. Their best album is what I've placed at number 2. Are You Ready? Best songwriting on here. It's their best performances, but it isn't my number 1. So let's talk about what is great about this record. It has 2 number 1 hit singles, Land of Make Believe at the end of the album and My Camera Never Lies at the start of it. And then another top 10 hit in Now Those Days Are Gone, which is their finest ever song. There was a time I did not like Now Those Days Are Gone. It felt so unlike anything that Bucks Fizz should be doing. And yet there was a switch that changed. It's in the top 10 songs of all time for me. It won an Ivor Novello Award because it is so beautifully written and beautifully performed. And it's the song I play to people when they say Bucks Fizz were rubbish. I say, listen to this. They weren't. This is a great song. But on top of that, we have Another Night and Easy Love and Love Dies Hard and the title track and Breaking and Entering. And it's just great pop music. This is their biggest selling album. It reached number 10. It is their only top 10 album. But it isn't my number 1. Because my number 1 is their debut. And that is purely wrapped up in emotion. This is a real heart over head choice because I got this when I was 7. I had it on cassette. I literally wore the cassette out, and I was distraught when I could no longer play side 2 anymore because it had gone all wibbly wobbly on the tape. I had to get a vinyl copy then so I could record it back onto tape and thoroughly enjoy it. I literally wore it out. And there's not a single track on here that I dislike. There is a track that I think is worse than the rest, and that is One of Those Nights. This was released as the 3rd single. It got to, I think, number 20, and it features Mr. Bobby G as lead vocalist. And it revealed to me right even back then that he was my least favourite vocalist out of the 4 of them. And yet he's the one who's still in Bucks Fizz and who it was all built around. He's not a bad singer, but it was... no. I would... Making Your Mind Up's probably a weaker song, but I still have fun with it. Piece of the Action I absolutely adore. I think that's fantastic. And then we had Lady of the Night, Midnight Reservation, and Shine On, and The Right Situation. And this is just a really enjoyable album for me. And it makes me feel, every time I listen to it, that I'm 7 years old again. And I have memories so ingrained in my brain of listening to particular tracks on here and loving them. It can only be my number 1 because of the way it makes me feel. And it is true to say that music is so much more than just whether or not it's produced well, played well, sung well. It's what it evokes in you that is so important. It will always be my Bucks Fizz favourite, even though it isn't their best. Not by a long chalk, because of how it makes me feel. So that concludes my ranking of the 10 albums from Bucks Fizz, OBF The Fizz. Let me know in comments below what you thought of it. Remember to subscribe, like, and hit the bell to receive notifications of future content. I made this video predominantly for myself, and therefore I know it's not going to get a huge amount of views. There's going to be another video out super quick so that something that'll be perhaps more of you towards your interests. But until then, thanks for watching.